Santiago Peak is a popular 9.5-mile out-and-back trail near Silverado, California. Sitting at 5,689 feet above sea level, hiking to Santiago Peak will take you to the highest point in Orange County. And since this peak is so high, it is part of the Southern California 6-Pack of Peaks challenge. Your first challenge on this hike begins before you even get out of the car. The road to the trailhead is rocky, bumpy, full of potholes, and requires high clearance, and 4-wheel drive is a great bonus. If your vehicle's not up for the challenge, you can still do this hike, but it is going to be a whole lot harder. You will basically have to hike all the way up this road and then do the trail. That will bump the stats of this hike all the way up to a 24-mile out and back trail with 4,000 feet of elevation gain. I'm definitely glad that we had the Jeep because 9.5 miles with 1,463 feet of elevation gain definitely sounds a little bit more pleasant. Here we are arriving at the trailhead, and as you can see, if you have a vehicle that is up for the challenge, there is plenty of parking here. Please note that there are several different ways to get to Santiago Peak, and in today's video we are doing the Santiago Peak via Maple Springs Trail. Almost immediately after leaving the parking lot, you're going to come to your first fork and you want to make a right here. We're going to be making our way up Main Divide Road, and that's something to keep in mind. This is actually a road and sometimes you will encounter vehicle traffic, so keep your eyes peeled for that. The vast majority of this trail is completely exposed to the sun. Shade is definitely a premium here. So you're definitely going to want to keep that in mind if you're attempting this in the warmer months. Be sure to bring the appropriate clothes, sunscreen, and plenty of water. One of the good things about this trail is that even though it does have a quite respectable amount of gain, it never gets super steep. On the way up, you're going to be steadily climbing, with a small dip in the middle to give you a break. This is probably a pretty good place to start if you're going to be doing the 6-Pack of Peaks challenge because this one is not too strenuous. In fact, I think the most strenuous thing about this trail was getting to it. Maple Springs Road is subject to seasonal closures for bad weather or fire danger, so it's a good idea to check with the Forest Service before you go just to make sure that it's open. In addition to closures, you also need to make sure that you have either an Adventure Pass or the America the Beautiful Pass displayed in your car, because no one likes to come back from a good hike to a ticket on their windshield. We ended up doing this hike on a day with some pretty interesting weather. There were tons of low clouds that kept coming in and swallowing up the mountain. On the bright side, this kept the temperature nice and pleasant, but on the downside, we were missing out on some really nice views. At right around the 1.5-mile mark, you're going to reach your first set of radio towers, and the trail is going to make a U-turn and head back the other direction. This is where you'll be getting to that dip that I was talking about. The trail is going to level out and actually be going just a little bit downhill for a second. You're also going to find yourself at 2 forks, and you want to stay right at both of them and stay on the main trail. Going left at the second fork will take you up to Majestic Peak, and that is also where that left trail that was just out of the parking lot would take you to. As we continued on, the fog kept coming and going, giving us only small glimpses of our destination, which is Santiago Peak. The fog also lifted just enough to give us some nice views of the valley below. Once you reach the back of the canyon, the trail will curve off to the right and head towards the Saddleback Saddle. Usually we try to record a cute clip of a dog when we talk about whether dogs are allowed on the trail or not, but we were the only ones out here aside from some paw prints. Just know that your 4-legged friends are allowed out here as long as they're on a leash and you clean up after them. As we reached the saddle, we got our first look out over the Inland Empire. It was slightly obstructed by trees, but don't worry because there are plenty of views up ahead. Just after passing the saddle, your downhill break will come to an end and it's time to get back to climbing. The second climb will take you all the way up to Santiago Peak. Even though I said that the climb on this trail wasn't that steep, the second half is definitely a little bit steeper than the first half. It's definitely manageable, but if you're going to be breathing heavy, this is probably where you're going to be doing it. You may remember that I mentioned earlier that this is a dirt road and you have to watch out for vehicle traffic. Well, we spotted one Jeep on the trail this day. We were doing this on a weekday, so maybe if you're here on the weekend, you'll encounter more vehicle traffic. Once you pass under these power lines, you will be 1.7 miles and 467 feet of climbing away from reaching Santiago Peak. The trail once again made a hard left here, and this is typically where you'd be getting some great views.
We have about maybe a mile to go. Unfortunately, as you can see, we're in cloud land, so it's too bad because I think the side over here, which is what I'm assuming is Mission Viejo, would probably be quite a nice view, but nothing.
In addition to the beach cities, on really clear days, you might be able to see all the way out to Catalina. The good thing about the peak being covered in radio towers is that every time we rounded a turn, we'd look up and see how much closer we were. It definitely gave us a little bit of motivation to keep pushing on. Even though we were striking out on views of the coastline, at least the Inland Empire side was pretty much under blue skies. And with one final push, we had made it to Santiago Peak. When you arrive, you'll find yourself at a three-way intersection. Making a left here will continue on North Main Divide Road and take you back down the mountain. We thought that we had to go straight here, but after a quick little bit of research, we realized that we actually needed to turn right. And now as we reach the towers, here's a quick little history of Santiago Peak. Because of its unobstructed sightlines, the US Forest Department built the first tower here in 1946. They partnered with SoCal Edison on a joint facility just 2 years later, and by 1952, 9 companies had facilities on the mountain. Fast forward to the 90s and there were 20 facilities up here. The facilities up here belong to companies and organizations such as American Tower, Crown Castle, Mobile Relay Associates, Day Wireless, Orange County Communications, the United States federal government, the state of California, and Southern California Edison, amongst others. You know you have officially reached the top of Santiago Peak when you climb this small mound and find this benchmark. At this point, you can either turn around and head back, or if you're like us, you can explore some more. As beneficial as the elevation is to all of the towers out here, it is a little bit of a bummer to see them out in nature. It kind of takes away from one of the reasons that we like to go hiking, which is to escape the modern world. Don't let that stop you from doing this hike though, because it is just challenging enough, and as I've said before, the views from up here are amazing. Once you reach the end of the road, you'll come to these 3 poles. I'm not exactly sure what they're for. I don't know if they're those little scopes that show you certain locations, but they've seen better days. And there's also this big boulder that if you climb down to it, would be a great spot to stop for a mid-hike picnic. Because of all the radio towers, I think that climbing down the hill just a little bit is where you're going to get some of the best views from Santiago Peak.
So here we are at the top of Santiago Peak. Actually, the top is maybe 100 yards that way. This spot actually gives you, in my opinion, and probably your opinion too.
Yep, way better view.
Way better view. Nearly 360. It'd be like what? Maybe not a complete 360. You could see there, around to over there. So I don't know how many degrees.
45?
245 degree views from the top of Santiago Peak. It's wonderful.
After savoring the views that we could get from the top, we decided to head back. We did find a small side trail that took us around the other side of the radio towers. And even though we gripe about them, there is something interesting and kind of sci-fi looking about them. If you are tired at this point, the good news is that the way back to the car is much easier. It's almost completely downhill, except for that little break that you got on the way up.
On the way down, there's a lot of little rolly rocks. You could slip and fall. We've almost lost V a couple of times now, so.
Yeah, I twisted my ankles twice.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to make sure she doesn't fly off a cliff or something like that, but.
If you do this hike and it ignites your passion for climbing peaks, be sure to check out our video about Sitting Peak. It's another one that is eligible for the Southern California 6-pack of peaks, and you can see that video by clicking in the upper corner right now. And if that seems too easy for you, you can always click in the corner right now to watch the video about Potato Chip Rock, which is part of the San Diego 6-pack of peaks challenge. I will say that V and I are a little bit spoiled after hiking in places like Zion and Bryce Canyon. If you're looking for something of that caliber, this one won't quite add up. But it is a nice little hike if you're out in the Southern California area, and we were glad to finally check it off the list because it was closed for quite a while after the Holy Gym fire. We are definitely looking forward to cooler months when we can check more of these 6-pack of peaks off our list, and which one would you like to see us do next? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, do us a big favor and like, comment, and subscribe because that really helps out the channel. And be sure to stay tuned because we have more awesome SoCal hikes coming up in the next couple of weeks. For all the information about Santiago Peak, as well as other awesome hikes and activities in Southern California, head on over to 𝐊𝐷AdventureLife.com.